how to reboot the Fantastic Four in the MCU. This is going to be a somewhat longer video than you expect, me going into details on how I would reboot the franchise for the MCU with a fresh new pair of eyes on the MCU, where they are now, and everything that's transpired. So unlike the previous theory that I had that pretty much everybody has now, which is reboot it as a period piece, throw them into the quantum realm, have them show up in the MCU, well, this is nothing like that. I said I had a crazy idea on how to do it, and if you guys wanted to hear my explanation, I would make a longer video. So strap yourself in, and let's get to it. So to start off, we gotta look at the MCU slate. Marvel's Fantastic Four is coming out on, as of the making of this video, on May 2nd of 2025. The film releasing before it is Captain America Brand New World. Now, the reason I state this is because this is an important piece of the story. Because in my Fantastic Four, the team first shows up in a post-credit scene. Now, before you start typing out an angry comment or telling me this can't work, you gotta hear why, and you gotta hear my story. So hold up a second. So at the end of Captain America Brand New World, and I mean the post-credit scene, this is gonna be a bit of a longer scene. We're gonna have Sam Wilson, aka Captain America, hanging out with Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, and they will be meeting at a cafe with Bucky Barnes, who they are trying to recruit for the Avengers. Bucky says he's not really interested in it, but he is looking into some other teams, aka the tease of the Thunderbolts, coming out just a few months after the Fantastic Four, because Captain America is due in February, Fantastic Four in May, and Thunderbolts in July. So while they are having this conversation, we realize that it's right underneath Avengers Tower. They just so happen to be sitting in the same location where we saw Captain America briefly in Avengers talking to that waitress, and of course there was an extended scene that wasn't included. But the three of them are sitting here when suddenly a giant boom happens. Our heroes look up in the sky past what was formerly Avengers Tower. A portal has opened up in the sky. Everybody starts running. It's panic. They think another invasion has started. Out of nowhere, the portal closes, and all we see is a giant flaming ball just crash right alongside Avengers Tower. It skids down in a giant ball of fire, covered in rubble, dust everywhere. Our heroes, Captain America, Falcon, and Bucky, move closer to this object to see what it is. As they clear off the debris, they see a 4 sticking out of the rubble. We as the audience realize this is the Fantasticar. The last scene is our heroes from the MCU looking upon it as the giant slab and rock that's on top of it gets lifted into the air. And all we see is a cutout silhouette of the thing holding it above his head, with the other 3 members and 2 children standing underneath it. Cut to black. The Fantastic Four story will be told in Marvel's Fantastic Four. Now that I got the post-credit scene out of the way, let's talk about the actual Fantastic Four film. Our Fantastic Four film opens up with Reed Richards in full panic mode. He is seen using a computer in the Baxter building saying, "This can't be. Not right now. This wasn't supposed to happen." He looks worried. The look on his face says it all. On the computers, we see the word breach. We see contact imminent on another screen. We then cut to Sue Storm running and saying she can't get a hold of the Avengers. They are currently off-world and communication is not possible. Something is blocking it. The Thing runs in and says he can't make contact with the Sorcerer Supreme or anybody else. Johnny Storm arrives, says he hasn't heard a word from Spider-Man or anybody else, including the X-Men. The worry suddenly hits all of their faces at once. Sue looks over at Reed and says, "We should have listened to you. You warned everybody and we ignored it." Reed says, "This isn't the time for that. We need to get out of here." He tells them he's made a contingency plan in preparation for this. Even if nobody believed him that a multiverse exists, he says he was given that warning by another Reed. And despite nobody believing him, he listened to his plan. And he believes he's built a one-time use device that will get them off this world somewhere else into the multiverse. The safety of it is brought up, but he says there's no time. Either they stay here and it's all over, or this is their last-ditch effort. It is at this point that two kids enter the picture. Sue tells Franklin and Valeria Richards to quickly get dressed. There's no time to explain anything right now. Suddenly, one of the screens in the background starts going off. Contact imminent. Reed Richards tells them this is all going to be fine. Reed stretches over to the nearest computer and enters in a secret code. Suddenly, a compartment opens up out of the floor. We see the very same Fantasticar that we saw at the end of Captain America Brand New World right in front of our very own eyes. Reed says, following the warning he got from another counterpart, he believes he's built a multiverse device and he's built it into this. It is a one-time use, one attempt to go at this, and they got to do it now without testing it. Everybody loads up into the car as Reed fires it off and they shoot out into the skyline of New York, realizing that they just came out of what we know as Avengers Tower, but here it's the Baxter Building. As the six of them are sitting in the car, one of the members looks out the window and says, "He's here." As our heroes look out the window in the distance, we see a towering Galactus as he is literally about 2.5 times the height of Avengers Tower, as he takes his hands and blasts it apart. As our heroes look on in absolute shock with a moment of silence, we see reality start to bend. We see everything start to get wiped out, including the World Eater himself, Galactus. We watch as he more or less gets turned into rubble. Everything starts disappearing, glitching, and falling apart. We realize that right now we are in the middle of an incursion happening. Multiverses are crashing and colliding with one another here. An incursion event in front of our very own eyes. Reed says he was told to type in these specific coordinates that he was given to another multiverse where he said that he was promised he would be safe. He then tells them he did everything he could to convince everybody that Earth 1610 was going to be destroyed by an incursion, but nobody listened. And now they're going to wake up somewhere else not knowing anything about Earth 616. The Fantasticar is engulfed in energy and blips out of existence right as everything goes black. Fantastic Four logo on the screen. The film can now start in the MCU. We replay the ending of Captain America Brand New World, and then we jump 6 months ahead. The Fantastic Four are now owners of Avengers Tower, and it is the Fantastic Four Baxter Building. They revealed that in the previous conversation, the guy that bought it just couldn't hold it. As much as he wanted to be like Tony Stark, he just couldn't cut it here either and couldn't afford the cost of the building. Hint, hint, it's actually revealed it was Justin Hammer. Yeah, he got out of prison, still trying to live the Tony Stark dream. He couldn't do it. We see the Fantastic Four as they're going on about their normal life now, trying to figure out everything that's happened in this universe since they are displaced. During the film, they're going to talk about how they've talked with the Avengers, how they've met various heroes. But this is their story and about how they are going to exist in this world, so we're not going to toss too many cameos in here. Captain America will stop by just to make sure they're doing good, but otherwise, it's the Fantastic Four. During the course of the film, they will be looking into what happened with them. And we're going to find out that they essentially found out that the Fantastic Four in this universe did exist to a degree. It was still the exact same people. They worked in the 1960s. They were part of the very first missions to space run by S.H.I.E.L.D. in secret. They disappeared. Nobody has ever seen them. Where are they? Save that for the sequels because I got a twist coming in those. But yeah, the Fantastic Four were just astronauts that ended up disappearing, and that was it. Reed quickly mentions how this is pretty close to what happened to them, except in their world, they were working for SWORD instead of SHIELD during the 60s, and they also went to space, except the accident that happened to them, they also disappeared, but they reappeared, except this time they had powers. Turns out, yeah, they were affected by a solar storm and the quantum realm, but none of them knew what was happening, as Reed is the only one that could really recall it, and this is what got him started on that whole multiverse thing and trying to figure it out. He also reveals that, yeah, he's checked in on him, and as it turns out, he still rose to power in this universe, despite the fact that there was no Fantastic Four. Yes, they are alluding to him, but they're not openly naming him just yet. But he says the Fantastic Four have been all over TV, everybody knows about them, they're like celebrities in this universe. If he hasn't made a move, maybe he's different here. Which is why Reed and the Fantastic Four aren't bothering to check in on him, and he hasn't done anything to provoke them or anybody else. As we're in this slow part of the film where they're catching us up, giving us all this back info, obviously it's after a action-packed opening sequence. We need to slow down. We get into the end of the first act, building up the second act, where we got the villain. For this one, I am going with Nova, Frankie Ray, who in the comics had a relationship with Johnny Storm, then suffered an accident, got some amnesia, remembered who she was, and willingly became a Herald of Galactus. In this, she's gonna be different, as she is the Herald of Galactus, but this we're saving for a later reveal. We actually don't know she's the villain right away, as she just shows up as Johnny Storm's girlfriend. But we see her doing some shady stuff, stealing info, sending it somewhere. We don't really know where, but we can speculate as fans watching the film that it's probably going to one or two places. But we can definitely tell that she has bad intentions and she's just using Johnny. There's really no feelings here. She's just here to do what she needs to do. Now, reminder, she was just stealing and sending info somewhere to some people. It turns out one of the people she was sending out the info to was the Puppet Master, who just so happens to be, in this version of the character and story, her father. What she's done is stolen a lot of info on the Fantastic Four and sent it to him and this benefactor out there who's just collecting info and technology and data. Throughout the course of the film, we're going to see the Puppet Master make himself known. Essentially, all this boils down to a third act in which Frankie tries to recreate a part of the accident because Reed has been working on it because he believes that maybe their universe could have still survived or something could have happened. He's trying to do anything to figure out if there's any way that anybody survived or escaped. She ends up using this device and gives herself Human Torch's power. In the comics, she has a connection to the android Human Torch. Here, well, we can do this one, kind of split the difference. Now she is fully gone mad and doing the bidding of her father. Now the Puppet Master has been working on his own schemes, as he's been told to test the Fantastic Four and their ability. He has been working on pretty much creating perfect duplicate androids, or LMDs, again for the benefactor. The third act of the film will see the Fantastic Four fighting the Puppet Master and Frankie, except with a twist. The Puppet Master is actually controlling a bunch of robots that just so happen to be, surprise, surprise, based on data, fight styles, and everything that the Puppet Master and the benefactor could get on the Avengers. The original team that saved New York, that's been now converted into essentially puppets, aka robots, are going to fight the Fantastic Four. Obviously, the Fantastic Four are going to win, but not before Nova is hurt pretty badly. The Puppet Master is captured and defeated and locked up, but Nova never manages to be found. In the mid-credit scene, we see that her body is floating in space. As her lifeless body continues to drift, we have no idea where it is. Suddenly, a voice jolts her body with her last remaining strength, alive enough just to see something massive standing in front of her. In the reflection in her eye, we see it's Galactus. That's the mid-credit scene. Obviously, she becomes his herald. The post-credit scene is a figure walking in a dark, moody castle. Thunder and lightning is bouncing off the walls as this man looks to be in absolute fear. He walks through a giant door, taking slow steps, each one slower than the last. And he says, "I have the data, sir." We then see that this is Sonny Birch. He says that he believes that they got everything now. They got enough data on everybody, and that it might be time for the benefactor to make himself known. The figure stands up and he says he might be correct. It's time for the world to know about Victor Von Doom. Post-credit scene over. Now, obviously, this was a first film. It sets up the basics. In the MCU, there's still a lot of mystery left. It's meant to connect to what's coming up. Obviously, I leave mystery like, hold up, what's up with Doctor Doom? And what's up with the Doctor Doom from the other universe? Like, is there a mystery there? Yes, there is. I would explore this in the sequel. Same with the MCU 616 missing Fantastic Four. Where did they go? If the exact same thing happened on both, but the ones in 1610 survived and got powers and became the Fantastic Four, what happened to the ones that went missing here? I would also explore that in the sequels. I obviously set up the mystery person that was helping Reed, telling him, it's gonna be time, you heard about this, you can escape. This would also be explored. In my mind, this would be Nathaniel Richards in the sequels, tying it in to be one of the Kang variants that needed them to be saved because it made sure that he could rise to power. Maybe even in a way establish that he might be the one that was controlling the entire sacred timeline in the far-flung future. So again, this is just another take on the Fantastic Four origin and how I would do it. The reason I went so different is because everybody has the same basic one now, and I wanted to think a little outside the box and go hardcore comic book. Nothing like opening up a film with the destruction of an entire universe and then saying, oh yeah, now they got to rebuild their life. That's why I would do it in another universe in the 616. Again, I talked very little about their children. They would also be in the film, but I didn't want this to be like a 40-minute video beat by beat because one, I haven't done that. I'm not writing the movie or a script. I just wrote down my general outline, and I didn't even get it all in here because some of it was a little redundant, like what I would do with the kids, for example. Surprising nobody, most of the film, I would actually have them gone. They're actually in upstate New York. There's a school there for gifted kids or something. I don't know. Nobody's looked into it yet. Don't worry. They'll cover in the future of the MCU. Just a little Easter egg, right? So that's it. That's my film. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I don't know. I know a lot of people at first didn't like my original pitch, Fantastic Four, Quantum Realm, time travel. Once everybody else started saying the same thing and kind of grew popular, nobody else seems to have come up with something else that's original. Hey, here's something original and radically different. It's probably not going to happen, but hey, I had fun doing it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it.